So while we're still waiting for some people to join, Cissy, Tim, and Zeke, and then is Karen gonna come tonight or?
Been in the middle of multiple things today, and she's working on something with a group in the EU right now. So she might
Yeah.
be. Sissy, did you hear back from her on the
I've not yet, no.
No worries, no worries. Would you guys mind just sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do?
My name's Cissy Jones. I'm a full-time voice actor based in Los Angeles. Work a lot in games and animation and commercials and trailers and promos and all the things. A couple years ago, I found that people were taking audio from the Owl House and using UberDuck to create AI versions of my character and have her say things that never came out of my face. And I got right freaked out. And I started a group called the Vocal Variants, where we tried to start, having a conversation about what to do to respond to AI, because it is here and it is not going away. And luckily for me, Tim Friedlander of NAVA and Zeke Alton came on to help us figure this out. And together, I think we've come up with a pretty solid framework that we've put online at navavoices.org/synth-AI with the basic guidelines that we want to see there, which is a very long way of saying, hi, I'm Cissy. Thanks for having me.
Hi, everybody. I'm Zeke. Let's see. So I'm an actor as well. I work on camera and in voiceover. I would say the majority of I work like Cissy in everything. The majority of my work, I would say, is video games, animation, and promo. I come to this as a board member of NAVA, as a member of the Vocal Variants, and I'm also an elected member of the Los Angeles Board of SAG-AFTRA. I sit on about 12 committees, from the Performance Capture Committee to the Video Game Committee to the Government Affairs Committee. I'm also a negotiating member of the video game negotiating team for SAG-AFTRA, and I'm also a member of the negotiating committee for the TV theatrical agreement, which we are about to start negotiating on June 7th. I'm sure everybody's heard about the writer's strike. The directors are in negotiations as we speak, and we begin on June 7th. I come to this with a little bit of contract and tech experience because prior to my life as an actor, I was a test pilot for the Navy for 20 years and worked a lot with the military industrial complex, contracting, negotiating, and the engineering behind building new airplanes.
I think everyone collectively said, wow. Very impressive. Tim, what do you got?
Yeah, I gotta follow that up. That is a good question, man. So we'll just start with the top. I'm the founder and president of NAVA, National Association of Voice Actors. I am primarily an educator and musician is my background. I taught elementary school music for 12 years and got my master's in music education from Boston University, and promptly went into voiceover full time as soon as I graduated from grad school in 2016. I work kind of all over the place as well. I was the promo voice for Pro Bowl writing on CBS for the summer series last year. Currently Aries on Record of Ragnarok on Netflix, and have done roles in Hunter x Hunter, One Punch Man, bunch of other just random things. A couple of History Channel documentaries that are out that I've been doing for a couple of years, and currently then jumping right into the AI discussion. Right after we launched NAVA in November or so, we jumped right into this AI discussion, and we are full force in that. I've had 3 interviews today. I've been on NPR twice today already talking about this, and we are all over the map with this. There's going to be a big announcement coming out tomorrow at Cannes that we're involved in about AI with the EU, and all of the other associations that are in Europe right now that we're helping with. So this is a great time to be talking about this, because we do have my new mantra is that it's not inevitable. We just have to be a part of this conversation now. The damage, the danger is potential, but not inevitable. And I think we have an opportunity, which is what we're here to talk about today with all of you, as well as I know there's at least one agent in the field here. So we are talking to everybody about this. Our mantra is education, education, education. The more we know as voice actors, the better we're going to be able to navigate this going forward.
Thank you guys so much. So real quick, we didn't even kind of open it up, but we're Mike and Heidi. We own Atlanta Voiceover Studio. We're just so grateful with the work that you guys are doing. And thank you so much for your time. I know, Tim, you even said how all the stuff you've had going on today. So thank you so much for taking time to share with us tonight. I do want to say really quick that we also just did an Instagram live with Jim Kennelly and Sam of Lotus Productions about AI. And we actually repurposed that also for one of our podcasts. So that airs June 1st on the Atlanta Voiceover Studio podcast. So there's also some other information just about AI. Jim is wonderful and is just a wealth of information. So don't forget to check that out. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to open the floor up to Cissy, Zeke, and Tim, and then I'll let you guys kind of steer the ship here. But I'll be here if you need me.
So we've done this a few times. Cissy and Zeke and I, we'll just jump into the same PDF we've been doing presentation, get us all on the same page, and then we'll be able to open up some questions later, and then Cissy and Zeke just jump in on any of the stuff that we need to clarify. We had a great meeting with about 50 of the agents a couple weeks ago and went through this very similar process with them. So we're just basically want to get ourselves on the same page about where we are. The first thing we want to make sure that we talk about is that we're not anti-technology, we're not anti-AR, but we are pro-voice actor. And we want to make sure that we're a part of this conversation, which we apparently have become a big part of this conversation over the last few months, fortunately. So we want to talk a little bit about what we're discussing, so at least we're somewhat on the same page. So we're talking about AI and machine learning. AI being artificial intelligence, so computer systems that are able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. And then machine learning, the study of computer algorithms that allow computer programs to automatically improve through experience. And I'm talking fast because what does all that mean in English? What are we actually looking at here? So machine learning, some of us have been involved in this. You're feeding data to computers to teach them how to recreate and or understand. So every time if you see we're doing an AI training module or we're doing machine learning, that's what we're doing. We're training these machines. Now, anytime you interact with Alexa or Google Voice or Siri or any other digital assistant, we're essentially we're training machines. They're learning how to understand how we speak, how dialects and accents. Nothing inherently wrong with that. There's nothing we're really concerned, we're not anti-machine learning either. It's going to help open up a lot of accessibility for a lot of people. It will help create some opportunities for people to hear accents and dialects in their language. So that in and of itself is not something that we're terribly worried about. Artificial intelligence is the programs that take what they have learned and then synthesize it. So machine learning teaches the machine. Artificial intelligence will take what it has learned, and then what it creates is a synthetic voice or a digital double or a voice dub. That's what is created. And our concern is what happens between that artificial intelligence and the creation of the voice. We want to know what's happening with that voice once it's created. So how do you build a synthetic voice? What has happened? And if Jim probably talked about a lot of this. Jim at Lotus and Sam are phenomenal. They know this technology really, really well. And they talk about this a lot. They know the kind of nuts and bolts of how this is made. So we have down here, which is all of us, a studio or a home studio. We're voice actors. This is where we all come in. Those human files get put into an AI neural machine, which is Respeecher or Nuance. Murph.ai is one that's been out a lot recently. Vocal ID. Those are things that we hear. They then produce a synthetic audio file, and that goes to the end user, which could be then an audiobook used for ADR, used for dubbing, voice description, any of those things. What we want to think about from the voice actor perspective is where this contract that we're signing lies in these companies. Are we signing a contract between ourselves and the AI company, or are we signing a contract between ourselves and the end user? And if we are signing between the end user, does the end user have control over what happens with the data that the AI company has? And if we're signing with the AI company, does the AI company have control over what happens with that data when it goes out? So those are two steps that we want to think about, because we could potentially sign with one of these companies and it ends up in the hands of a third party who can use it in a way that we didn't know, or it ends up in the third party because the AI company we dealt with didn't have their contract clear or didn't tell us fully what was happening with that data. So there's two kinds really. It's text to speech, which is what we're all very familiar with. You type in something, AI company, the neural machine will spit it out. And that could come out the other end, synthetic audio files. That could either be in our voice, it could be in somebody else's voice, it could be in a blended voice, which is what we hear with Siri and Alexa are these composite blended voices. With this, there's no standard compensation model for this type of usage. So we don't know what is standard in this place. Companies track metrics like character throughput or hours of audio processed. That's how they will track things. And then they may also charge for initial development of the neural model hosting, meaning if you want to make a synthetic voice, they may charge you $6,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 to create that voice. Once it's done, you don't necessarily know how you're going to get paid. right? We don't know, are we going to get paid for the minutes it produces? Are we going to get paid for the amount of characters? Are we going to get, as Zeke was talking about yesterday, tokens? There's a token system that potentially creates a different way of measuring something. Another thing we want to think about is speech to speech. And this is where we get into kind of some of the dubbing concerns. This is where you take a real human performance, think about a mocap actor wearing a mocap suit, goes into the neural machines. They're going to put new characteristics on top of that. And the end result is a real human performance performed by a human, but sounds like someone else. Karen uses the example all the time of she can narrate an audiobook and put Barack Obama's voice over that. So it would be Barack Obama's voice performed by Karen Gilfrey. Now this is an entirely new ball game about what are we doing? How do you navigate that? Who's the performer? Who is actually the voice? Does Barack Obama get the credit? It sounds like him, but he didn't actually do anything for that performance. Does Karen get the credit? She's the performer, but she's not what we actually hear. We would feel her performance, but we're going to hear Barack Obama's voice. So this is kind of the new territory that we're in. I'm going to turn it over to Zeke here to talk about some of this section of where we're seeing usage, unless Zeke would like to talk about something else. We're all on the same page, at least with the very basics about what this technology is, the two prominent uses of it being text-to-speech and speech-to-speech currently, obviously with more things that will come out of that. And so hopefully that's obviously a crash course in hopefully the basics. This is the basics of this stuff. Zeke, what would you like to jump into?
This is things that we in the entertainment business either are already familiar with or should already be familiar with. When we talk about AI in the voice world, we talk about synthetic voice, but it has a lot of different uses. And so the examples are up here. For those that have seen The Irishman, they saw the de-aging technology that was used on Robert De Niro. That was AI computing that did that. It was visual usage. It wasn't great, let's admit. But if you look at the new trailer for the new Indiana Jones movie, it has done leaps and bounds. It looks a heck of a lot better. They've de-aged Harrison Ford for about 20 to 25 minutes of that movie. Furthermore, if you look at instances with Obi-Wan and The Mandalorian, they have now created synthetic performances of both Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker and James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. The intent from the film and TV industry is to continue to use that as an enhancement of performance. And they do have the intent, if not the capability yet, to create new and original performance without the actor in the room. So those are sort of the levels that we see there. In video games right now, video game companies are using AI, something called Robo, as internal demo scratch tracks so that they can fill it in and get the timing set up for everything. It sounds awful, but it gets better week by week. There's an instance now, the first time that an AI synthetic voice has been moved not just from demo and scratch, but into the final product of a game. That was a shooter called High on Life that was released on Xbox. Another example is the new God of War game. One of the lead actors in God of War was a teenager during filming. And so he went through puberty and his voice changed over the 3 to 5 years that they did filming. They used the company Respeecher to use an AI model to age up and age down his voice to a nice middle ground so that they had a consistent voice across the use of the game. Now, we at NAVA, and I would say that those at SAG-AFTRA, agree that post-processing tools using AI are a great thing. Where the concern is creating new cloth performance that was not done by the actor in the room without compensation and consent of that actor. We do know that the intent from video game companies is to essentially start to fill in smaller one-line NPCs and grow it up and up and up until the worlds are filled in with the computer and they hire actors for the leads. That's problematic because then where does a new actor get an in? Where does a new actor get experience, cut their teeth, if all of that is done by the computer? When you look at the dubbing world, you can go ahead and Google flawless.ai. That was a company that was created by a director who was not satisfied with the transcription and dubbing in the legacy system of his movie. He felt that the adapter, translator, new director, and performer changed the intent of his film. So they got the technology together to take the visuals of the film, remove the mouth of the actor, and then repopulate that mouth digitally in a different language. Then they used a new actor to put new language to it. But as speech-to-speech develops and matures, you can take the original performance from the original actor and translate it into a new language, remap the mouth, and the art of dubbing is gone. It is now a post-processing tool to take the original performance and translate it into however many languages you feel you need. You can take a look at those models online. They're not great, but they're on their way. Looping is the same as dubbing. Why would you not want to take the original actor because you can't call in Samuel L. Jackson or Scarlett Johansson? Just add into their contract that you can make a model of them if you need to make adjustments to the movie to put it on an airplane or to make it PG-13 or to adjust a word here and there. You just do it with the model. That technology already exists and the intent is there. And then with commercials, scratch tracks, demos, just like video games, are increasingly being done by AI. There are now companies out there that specialize in all you need is an idea. You type it into the machine writes, directs, animates, voices, and produces your final commercial without any of those individuals in the pipeline anymore. So that's kind of where production is wanting to go. The technology is leaning that way. We as actors need to be aware of that and find our place in it. Our stance on that is you can use us, but there must be consent for what we do and compensation appropriate for use of our name, likeness, and voice.
And control. We get
And
to say if we want to be part of this project or not.
Correct. Karin usually talks to this, but I'll speak to this. The application of AI voice in what we call the non-broadcast corporate, educational, and industrial uses is vast. Translation, e-learning, voice assistants, phone systems, audiobooks. The great example here is there is some goodness to this because there are some jobs that voice actors cannot physically do. If you had a device, say your Alexa, and you wanted it to, for accessibility reasons, read the New York Times every morning to every person in every language through their Alexa, there is no voice actor that could do that. However, if you have a neural model that can do that in real time, that is a real application that is useful for the world. We just have to be aware that while there are those good applications, there are also the other applications where the voice actor is taken, modeled, and then used, and they no longer have a career because the model of them is already out there doing stuff, making other people money and not making them any.
No, I think this kind of goes into a little bit about what actually Spotify just announced the other day. They're kind of doing with some of their virtual DJs. I look at some of that stuff as, it could be kind of there is benefit to some of this, or there is a usability, a way that a voice actor can be a part of that. If you make a great contract, a fair contract with someone like Spotify, because Spotify, what they're doing now is they're putting in intros and outros of all their podcasts for people as they listen to them, which no human, there aren't enough narrators in the world to be able to narrate live for every person who's listening to Spotify. But if the narrators can license their voice for certain usages there with consent control, knowing, great, I'll be able to let it be used for podcasts of this variety, or in newscasts or something like that, or introducing songs, or introducing a block of music in that virtual DJ thing that's very personalized to everybody with the consent control and compensation of the voice actor. But that's a very real, I think they just announced it yesterday or day before about what they're doing with that. So
let's add to that when we talk about commercials and what the union calls addressability. It really means personalization. So when you watch your TV these days, you're getting commercials, but there's an algorithm behind that wants to build to give you the commercials that are properly addressed to you. So when we look at the progression of this in audio commercials for VO, the union has conceded that when we talk about all edits, lifts, and things like that, when you do a contract, you get your usage payments for it, but there is now built-in addressability so that commercial can be different in New England than it is in Arizona. With the tools like AI, that can be different at Tim's house than it is at my house. But there's no way for a voice actor to do that because it essentially requires infinite possibilities based on the algorithm of what your tastes are. So if, like Tim says, if we get the contract right, we set up the contract where you can set up your commercial model for AI that does addressable advertising, but still allows consent in a contract and proper compensation for the continued use of your voice.
Yep, consent, compensation, control. Those are what
You'll hear that a lot.
Cissy, do you want to talk about what we're starting to see a little bit?
So I think we all know that there's no stuffing this genie back in the bottle, right? It's here. The problem so far is that we have been shut out of the conversation, and it's time that we become a part of it. It's scary. Everybody's scared. Everybody except for the CEO, like fat cats. Everybody is terrified for their jobs. That's why we need guidelines. That's why we need guardrails. NAVA, with the steering committee of the vocal variants, we've been working on this for 2 years. We are working with the union to come up with a solid rate plan We're not there yet, but we're getting close. And the thing is, this is something that can work for everybody, regardless of union status. This is union actors. This is non-union actors. This is FICOR actors. This is all of us. And the most important part that comes down to every single one of us, you're going to hate me for it, is reading your contracts. There is so much hidden language that is getting snuck in right now. And we sign it without even thinking about it, because who wants to sit down and read a 17-page contract? They suck, except for Zeke. I know Zeke loves contracts, but we have to know what we're signing. You know, we have seen from major corporations that are under a union contract, they're slipping in language that says they have the right to digitize our session recordings. We catch that, we send it to the union will go back and fight it. Honestly, it's the best argument for joining the union that I've seen in a very long time, because they have the legal firepower to go after it. Now, for non-union stuff, just make sure you're reading it. If you see anything in your contract that says anything about digital version, digital double, vocal clones, synthesization, anything along those lines, call it out. Call it out, redline it, send it to your agent if you have one, send it back to the client and say, hey, I'm not okay with signing this. Most of the time, clients do not even know it's in there. It's being put in there by attorneys to become boilerplate language. So our job is to make sure it does not become boilerplate language. Tim, I know, I'm sorry, I skipped around a whole bunch here.
No, I jumped right ahead. This is great. Caught up with.
Thank you. So these are the terms that we really need to be on the lookout for here that Tim has so graciously put up for us. Again, most people don't know that language is being included. Now, Tim, in his infinite wisdom, has worked with an attorney through NAVA to put together a vocal waiver that you can send to your clients, any non-union clients that you have, that says that they will not take your session recordings and turn it into an AI voice or feed machine learning. This is available for free to any single human under the sun currently on the NAVA webpage. Tim's got that website down there because he's a genius and I love him.
Okay.
It's customizable. If you need to take any part out of it, do whatever you need, make it yours and make it part of your standard contract, especially if you're negotiating your own contracts. Make sure that people are signing this stuff. And we have started to see, amazingly, clients are coming to talent now with this language already in their contracts, which is outstanding. Again, most people, most worker bees are scared to death, right? And so for people to see a group of people who are seemingly on the chopping block standing up for themselves and saying what they will and will not accept, people are really excited about it. I know that sounds really Pollyanna, and sorry if you're not old enough to get that reference, but it's true. People are looking for guardrails. So we are here to offer those as best we can. The other thing we really want to be watching out for in our contracts, which we are going to read with a fine-tooth comb, right, is terms. Anything that says they can use a digital version of your voice in perpetuity throughout the known universe for a buyout is a bad deal. That could potentially be your last voiceover job, period. What we would like to see and what we are working to get in place is a term of a renewable timeline. So 12 months, 6 months, 18 months, that you get to renew your contract with where your digital voice is being used, and you're paid per usage. So it's not a flat fee for the year. It's not a one-time buyout. Basically, we want to see you getting paid anytime your digital voice is utilized.
Can I clarify one thing? When you first start reading your contracts, you're going to be horrified. There are times when in perpetuity throughout the universe is going to be okay. Understand that in copyright law, what we do as entertainers in the United States of America is what's called a work for hire. So even though you do the job, if you are commissioned to do the job by a producer, they own the intellectual property. If I do an animated series, that cartoon character is not owned by me, it's owned by the producer. And they have the right within that single project to own the rights to it in perpetuity throughout the universe. What they don't have is the right to use my voice beyond that project for anything else. That's what Cissy is pointing at. So when you see that, make sure that it's narrow and contained within the individual project that you're signing on. This is why it gets difficult when you're creating an AI model, because although it's fine for me to do a crazy cartoon character and give away the rights to that cartoon character in perpetuity throughout the universe, if I do an AI model and give away the rights to that model in perpetuity throughout the universe, what I've done is say, you own that, you can do anything you want with it without ever asking me. And that's going to be a big problem, and that could prevent you from working in the future ever.
While you're here, can you talk to the simulation clause that we're seeing as well?
Yeah, sure. You want to throw out that example? So where we found this, just so everybody knows, is in the dubbing contracts, but it also exists not only in animation contracts and video game contracts, it also strangely exists in on-camera performer contracts, because I did a co-star on Grey's Anatomy and this was in it. Okay, so there's something called a simulation provision in most of the entertainment contracts that we work on, and that's been in there for years. And what it was designed to do originally was, if I have a celebrity and I record them for my movie, and then I need to bring them back for some ADR to fill in their own voice or something like that, generally I can't get on their schedule, and also I can't afford them. So I hire another actor to voice match that person. And they come in and they do, Crispin Freeman does Orlando Bloom's voice. He's 20% of the dialogue in The Lord of the Rings. Uncredited, but it's a great way to make money, and it's an actor's job. That provision allowed for that. Now, within the last year, what we've started to see is the addition of the term by all technologies and processes now known or hereafter developed throughout the universe and in perpetuity. And what that does legally is allow the producer to not hire another actor, but to model and use a computer to do that, because it's any technology. The addition of those words was slipped in without telling anybody. And so we caught that and sent that to the union. Now, SAG-AFTRA has made a public statement that those rights are not rights that you can take, and they're not rights for a union job that you can individually bargain with the actor. Under national labor law, those rights have to be bargained with the union. So what we've seen is these provisions have come across in our contracts. It's not our job as actors to fight this fight on a union job. If there's any pressure that you might lose the job, you sign and do the work. But then you take this provision and you send it to the union at aiquestions@sagaftra.org. Their legal team goes up here and across to the legal team at Netflix, Amazon, HBO, or Disney, or whoever that may be, and tells them your contract provision is null and unenforceable and you cannot use it. Now, that's the advantage of working on a union project. Whether you're non-union, FICO, or union, if you're under a union project, you have that multi-million-dollar legal team at SAG-AFTRA that will send that correspondence and cover you. If you're working on a non-union project, that's where the AI writer becomes really, really important. And reading your contracts and redlining out that section about all technology now known or created in the future becomes really important.
We did have a list of tech companies that we've seen. I mean, it's to be honest, it's a bit like whack-a-mole. Like, we identify one and then 14 others spring up. But these are some of the ones that we've seen more regularly. Personally, UberDuck was the one that I started noticing my voice being used on, and then 11 Labs. We've reached out to some of them. UberDuck has been very responsive when I say, hey, you don't have my consent to have my voice up there. They have taken it down. They've created a blacklist of actors who are not to be uploaded. FakeU.ai also did the same. 11 Labs basically said, sorry, it's user uploaded. We can't do anything about it. Bye. So it's a little frustrating. The one thing to be aware of is that a lot of these companies are starting to do outreach to voice actors, to all of us, to anybody, anywhere that has access to a computer and a microphone, saying, hey, kid, we're creating a database. Want to be a part of it? We'll give you a flat rate of $1,200. What do you say? Don't do that, please. Because again, here's your one-time buyout for them to have your voice in perpetuity forever. And that's it. You get $1,200 for the use of your voice forever and ever. And that's the end of it. So keep your eyes out for a lot of these. Again, we are working on getting some good terms out that we can kind of use as a springboard for working with AI companies, but just be aware of what people are asking. There are also others that will come out and say, we'll give you $30,000, a $30,000 buyout to use your voice as a digital clone. It sounds like a lot of money. It sounds like a heck of a lot. It is a lot of money. But again, please be aware that this is $30,000 one time, and that's it. And they don't need to hire you ever again. Personally, I make a living doing voiceover full time. $30,000 for the rest of my life would not feed my children. Just things to be aware of as these companies start to do more and more outreach and try to fill their rosters.
Murph.ai is currently recruiting pretty heavily. A lot of people, I don't know if anybody here has seen those emails. We don't know much about them, and so I don't know really anything about them. That's probably something we need to look into. How many people here got an email from Largo.ai saying, hey, congratulations, you're on our roster. You're now on our AI roster. You've been added to our list. They are a casting company. They're doing AI casting, and they scraped data from IMDb, and anybody who was a voice actor in IMDb got an email, and it just came out the wrong time, the wrong place. If you get a Largo.ai one, just ignore them. They don't have anything. They're not an AI synthetic company. They're trying to do casting. They will let their algorithm basically match up producers and talent. Voices.ai. How many people here saw the Voices.ai thing a few weeks ago? So Voices.ai is very interesting because Voices.ai is owned by Voices.com. They just announced it at a very inappropriate time because they weren't aware of what was going to happen when they announced it. They don't actually have a site. There's nothing on the site. They have a domain name, and they have offered up a few opportunities for some of their top talent to create a synthetic voice potentially down the line, but they don't have anything. The big concern with this is that everybody was worried that these companies were going to basically taking our audio. If we were doing an audition through them, they were taking our audio. So Karen and myself and Cissy and Zeke and all of us got together and we reached out to voices.com. We spent a week having conversations with them, with David and Stephanie, and they changed their terms of service on their website now. 14D / something or other now specifically says they will not use your audio, any audio uploaded through their website for machine learning or AI. They also have reiterated, as have all the companies, that they never have done that. They never will, and they don't have any intention to do that. It's in writing, and it's something that we should all pay attention to. If that changes, we all need to know about that. But currently, all of these sites, David Ciccarelli, in writing on blog posts, in emails, verbally to myself and Karen, has said they have never used audio on their sites to train machine learning or to create a database. They've never sold it to anybody. They don't have any plans to, and they never will. So something to keep in mind, that there at least is a little bit of, hopefully a little bit of talking us off the ledge a little bit, and a little less fear that our voices have been being stolen somewhere. If they are being taken, it's not from these places we use regularly. So that's good. I think that's a really good thing.
I think it's a great time to also point out that because of the outcry, the public outcry from voice actors writ large, Tim and Karen got together and put together the Fair Voices Pledge to have voices.com, Voice123, Bodalgo, Voquent, Cast Voices, if I'm saying that right. They signed this pledge saying that they would not take any uploaded materials and use it to feed machine learning or create a digital voice of us. This is big. Now, this does not mean that they will not be casting AI on their sites. So if you are using these sites, please be aware. Please read the terms that are coming through with these jobs. I think Tim said we saw one the other day on Voice123 that was $1,200 buyout for AI voice, and one on voices.com that was
$1,200 on Voice123 in perpetuity, $30,000 on voices.com for a year usage. And with those constraints, $30,000 for a year usage is reasonable if there's no conflicts. Look at that contract. It could potentially be a viable option if you know the usage and you have control over that. This doesn't do this with anybody that we work with. This is why the contracts are important, is that once the client buys this audio from voices.com or Voice123, they can potentially use it for whatever they want. So this is where we as voice actors have to be aware of our contracts. This also could happen through an agent as well. The agent or a casting director or somebody, once it goes to that client on the other side, we honestly don't know what happens with that audio. We have no way to control it, track it, monitor it, trace it, stop it if it goes out. So we can put it in our contracts. We can also, from our experience, what we've seen so far is know that the people we've been working with through agents and through these places, for the most part that we have seen, and very few outliers, don't want to steal our voices. They don't want to have that liability of taking our voices and creating something they don't own. Now there's copyright issues, as somebody's, Zeke kind of mentioned that and touched on this earlier. Anything created by a computer, by a digital creation, cannot be copywritten or copyrighted, whatever the right term is, right? So anything theoretically created, Well Said Labs, we actually met, they're actually a great one. We met with the heads of their department a couple months ago, Karen and I, they were one of the first ones to reach out to us. They are an AI company, but they are trying to do this ethically and fairly and doing their best to create fair contracts. So if they've reached out, they're actually a great company to interact with and talk with, going in with some knowledge and ask them what the usage is, ask them for fair contracts. I got sidetracked, kicked into that. So I forgot what I was saying. Oh, copyright. So yes, so anything that is digitally created, the Nuratu clause or the Nuratu law, whatever it is, only humans can hold copyrights. So theoretically, anything created that somebody creates with an AI is public domain. You can take it and do whatever you want to with it. So you do kind of get into some gray area here with what happens if somebody creates a voice out of your clone. Nobody really owns it. So it's a bunch of legal, and no company really wants to be the one to be caught stealing people's voices currently now, I hope. But, you also never know. So next spot, it would still be paid the same amount as an internal. This is where the rates conversation comes into play, is that people have very different ideas about what the value of these voices are. And personally, we're going for that usage is paid the same whether it's human or digital. It's where you save the money is in the session fee, because there wouldn't be a session for the voice actor. For them, their current model says that the usage is not relevant. So this is where we need to figure out and have these conversations. So that's actually good to know. We'll try and go back to them once we get our rate, some rates figured out about this. Multiple people have talked about this, is that the usage has the same value, whether it's a human or digital voice. If they're using a synthetic voice, if it's a good ad, the ad is going to have the same value to them as it would if it was a human voice. So therefore, the synthetic voice should be paid the same. NFTs, yes. So there actually is a new company coming out, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, that will be handling all of this for us. Blockchain NFTs, audio tracking, data tracking, synthetic voice tracking. Hopefully will be out in the next, I keep saying hopefully in the next 2 weeks, then it keeps becoming the next 2 weeks. But hopefully in the next 2 weeks.
I think it's important to stress that for the last couple of months, most actors haven't really heard a lot about who's doing something about this. I guess this is our opportunity to tell you that NAVA is working really hard on the data tracking and all of that blockchain stuff. NAVA, in work with SAG-AFTRA, and a lot of these companies that are looking to do it ethically, are in rooms right now hammering out the details of what should the compensation structures be for a commercial versus a co-ed versus a video game. What should the compensation structure be to develop a model? All these things are being worked on right now. SAG-AFTRA, I can say as a member of SAG-AFTRA and as a board member, is terrible about communicating this stuff. They hold it all behind closed doors. So I'll be here to tell you that we are working on it. And we are working really, really hard, and we are really, really close. And our hope is to be able to bring to the community, here is a standard template contract that the union approves of, so that you can get a job regardless of what your status is, flip it to the union, have your AI go do a bunch of work while you're not there and rack up money that goes to pension and health and make you a union member, if that's what you want to do. If you don't, this union contract can be used to set a standard rate that is a fair rate for an actor to be compensated for use of their AI model. Until then, we're all just kind of swimming around in the dark, and we're unfortunately at the mercy of the companies telling us this is what you're worth. We want to, as an organization and as a community, be able to say, no, we determine that this is what we are worth, and this is what the work is worth.
This is was called EVOTA. It was called EVOTA, is now called United Voice Artists, and is tomorrow at the Cannes Festival in France. That's why I was late. I was trying to finish the website to put this up there. We are helping all the European nations, 20 organizations across 13 nations, to try to help establish some EU regulations, since they are very strict, that we in the US can then model off of. So I'm going to drop here. You all get the very first preview of this. It's a manifesto. It's a document of concerns, signed by 24 different associations across the world, primarily in Europe, and led primarily by France and Austria are the two main groups that have been doing it, as well as Equity, though Equity, like SAG-AFTRA, is a large organization and has not gotten the approval to sign off on it in time for the launch, but will be joining down the road. they're calling for very similar things that we're calling for, with some different restrictions and some different penalties in play that are more enforceable in the EU than they are here. But this has gone global, and we are a big part of making this change, hopefully, because voiceover is global. Tech companies are global. This technology knows no boundaries nor nations, and it will be everywhere. So with that said, it's important for everybody to spread the word, for everybody outside of the United States as well. I'm doing a lot of stuff with Kenya and Nigeria because a lot of people are casting for authentic voices in different countries. And so it's going to be important for us to be able to help everybody navigate this industry and what's fair for them. We have the luxury of being able to turn work down here because we can stand up for our right to turn down work. And there are certain voice actors specifically in Kenya that are literally paying, they're booking a job around when the power is going to be on, so they have Wi-Fi. They're booking a job around when they're going to have lights on so they can read their scripts. They're booking the time around those things, and the luxury of turning down a job is not always there. So talking about, keeping the lights on, sometimes they're willing to take these jobs that could potentially lead to more damage down the road. So we're trying to help navigate that as well.
I do want to add something real quick, and that is that while all of this is happening in the EU, it is important to note that there is legislation supposedly happening here as well in the States. I mean, we all know that it's a slow-moving machine, but we have had conversations with various political entities, and there is legislation happening. There's also lawsuits coming down the line. So people are paying attention. It's just a matter of, can we hold the line long enough to make sure that there's something left for us when the legislation gets here? And again, that's why it's so paramount that every single one of us reads what we are signing. And if you have questions, comments, concerns, if you see something weird in a contract that you, want to bring to our attention, you can email us at NAVA, and Tim, in his infinite wisdom, is going to put the right email address in the chat for me. But we are, like Zeke said, we are working on this. It started as a once a month meeting 2 years ago, and now it's pretty much daily. We are working hard. So please,
I'm going to drop this other one in the chat as well. If you have agents who have questions, this is a private email that only I have access to, that only I have the password for, that only I can get to, that if agents would like to reach out with some specific questions, I can answer those questions. It is a safe and secure place. We are not sharing anything with that. We know we respect the agent's need for keep things on the down low sometimes and to ask questions in a safe space. And so this is a safe email for those agents. Anybody, if you have agents who have questions, they are welcome to reach out to us. Sorry, to me only. It goes to me only, but to NAVA. So sorry, Cissy, I want to drop that in before I forgot about that. So
that's okay. What questions? I know there's questions. Oh, what if there is no contract? Not every client sends a contract. I've never had a contract because it was my understanding that a written agreement and email. There's a lot of people that take not specifically saying that you don't want your voice to become an AI as consent. So personally, if you can add a contract, add a contract. It's just safer for everybody involved.
Add the writer. You can add the writer. If you have nothing else, say, great, here is this, and in addition, I'd like you to add the writer, or just write in there, great, thank you, and also would like to confirm that you will not be using this for AIs, synthetic voices, or machine learning. You can put that in the contract, and put that just if you use that email, come back with it. And if they say, oh, I'm sorry, we can't agree to that, then you can be like, okay, well, then let's do a contract here and put that in writing or something like that. It's a great opportunity for you to also find out, potentially what their intentions are if they're not clear up at the very beginning. We either are so good at what we do that we answer all the questions, or it's just so overwhelming that you got to sit back like a week and process all of this. So as far as 11 Labs themselves, like using it as a voice actor, they are not, and again, we have this in writing, we have this as part of their contracts, they are not using anything uploaded to their site to create or train voices. But anybody can upload anything to the site. So as Cissy found, somebody could upload anything to that site. But if you wanted to make one yourself to use through the site, they're not going to use that for their machine learning. They have said in their terms of service and in writing we have from somebody who has an enterprise license with them. Brandon,
First off, thank you so much to ATL Voiceover Studio and for our speakers today. This was really, really wonderful to listen in on. I wanted to confirm, I think someone kind of touched on this in chat again, and I wanted to kind of confirm something that you all were speaking to, in that it seems like we shouldn't be that frightened by the actual technology and like our voices potentially becoming a synthetic model. It seems more our worry should be about the fair use and compensation of that. And it seems like that's a lot of what you're working toward, is making sure that that is more laid out. I just wanted to kind of, hearing yes to that, kind of, I see nodding. It's already going to make me breathe a little easier. So
Yeah, it's consent,
Yeah.
compensation, and control, the three C's that we're looking for, which is in our the Fair Voices pledge that we've put together.
As Cissy said earlier, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. This is one of the things that the WGA struck over. It wasn't that they were trying to prohibit the use of AI computing. They just wanted to understand how the tool could be properly used, because there's two ways this goes. Either the tool is used by the creator to enhance their ability to create, or the tool is used by management to try and replace the creator. We all clearly come down on one side of that, and that's what we're pushing towards.
thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, I'm gonna harp on it till the day I die. Consent, compensation, control. Make sure you know those three things if you choose to make a digital version of yourself. I think there are some really, really incredible applications that an AI voice can do. Karin has also talked about being able to say every single name on the planet, or every single drug name for an IVR. There are some really cool uses, and some, quite frankly, that we haven't even thought of. There are a lot of companies that don't understand how to audition people, or don't want to listen to auditions. They just want to have, Jim from HR come and record the thing. But if we can give them an option to do it with a trained professional, then it'll sound great. I think there's a real opportunity there. We just have to get the contract right with consent, compensation, control.
And no in perpetuity unless you absolutely have to. But know what it means. Know what that looks like. Know what it.
Barbara wants to know if we have any recourse for the use of recordings that are already out there. Are you like somebody used your digital voice to make a thing, or what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years. There are a lot of recordings of me out there, and they were done at a time when this wasn't, I mean, I could never have thought of this. I even just a few years ago, I work for a computer company. Actually, we produce, in multiple languages, but I used to kind of joke and say, tell Siri to tell you a joke, and then decide if I still have a, career. While that particular technology hasn't advanced that far, there was an article in the Washington Post, that definitely freaked me out when I listened to the direct comparison between the guy who did the recording and then the AI version of that guy saying the same thing. I couldn't hear the edits. And it was perfect. I wonder if it's, even if I'm creating a contract for voiceover work in the future that is as close to airtight as we can get, if that even matters for me, because there's so much of my voice all over the globe.
I think it really depends.
I mean, same.
What's with.
For example, the one in particular that was taken of my voice was from a Disney show. So Disney owns the rights to that character. Disney can go after him with all the firepower they want. But I mean, people can take your outgoing voicemail message and feed it. You know what I mean? They can take anything that's on Instagram, anything that's on YouTube, anything that's anywhere. That's publicly available information, and they can upload that to create a digital voice. It's real scary. And it's just a matter of, if it's a character that is owned by another company, then they have the right to go after it. And if it's an unauthorized use of your voice somewhere, I guess see what.
Yeah, but my understanding is
lies.
they can mix a soup song of another voice with your voice, and now it's no longer that character, and no one owns it, even though your mother would swear it's you.
We are working on that. We are working on a tracking solution, or we've been working with a company that's working on a tracking solution. Thank you. Just keep checking in at navavoices.org. We're posting new information on the synth-AI page all the time. Just keep checking in. I post whenever I can on my Instagram page as well. I'm Cissy Speaks on Instagram. If there's been a major update or anything like that, I will try to post a video, which is how I got connected here with with the school. So, and someone was asking, why aren't our voices copyrightable, or why aren't they intellectual property? I don't know the answer to that, but it's a great question. And again, you know, I think especially as we go into a presidential election cycle, I think a lot of politicians are getting really scared. The possibility for deepfakes, as you have heard, are real good. So I'm hoping that they get off their behinds and get some legislation passed sooner rather than later.
I will say that they are actively trying to protect themselves. The important part here is that the entertainment unions, not just SAG-AFTRA, but WGA and DGA, are trying to piggyback on when politicians protect themselves, that we are all protected.
Yep.
Right.
Cool. Jeffrey, we got time for one more.
Yeah, hey, thanks. I think the work you guys are doing is fantastic. As someone who's an actual veteran of software for over 20 something years, I won't date myself, but been doing it for a long time, worked for some very big companies. I'm gonna tell you right now, it is the wild, wild west until you make it not so. And I'm gonna tell you, as someone who's done a lot of contracts, and I'm talking some of the biggest software companies that you can think of, household names, they will continue to push and go until those guardrails exist. I think the work you're doing is fantastic, because without it, they don't know. When the attorneys, the contracts, anybody writing anything legal gets that, it will be a game changer. But until that becomes a standard, you have no standard. The biggest thing to become in software, and I think that there's several folks here, and Zeke, you may be more familiar with this than others with your time in tech, is you have to make something a standard. It has to be something that a group agrees that this is what we're going to go forward with. And you can adjust it and tweak it down the road, but it has to be that one thing that everyone says, yes, we agree to this, we'll modify it from here, but this has to be how we rein this in, because without it, it will continue to be something that festers. I can tell you, we would push when I was, I'll just not say, we'll say a big competitor to Microsoft, we'll just say, we would push hard against anything. You don't have a basis, you have a legal basis, we push hard against it and keep using digital photography, imagery. Before Getty Images had the repository and date ability, we would push hard against that. Why? Because we could. There was no rails. There was nothing you could do to us, right? And I'm not condoning, you know, I feel terrible for it, but I put technology in place that help with that. And what I'm saying is, I think the work that you're doing, we all have to help support this. It's amazing. I think it's great. I want to continue to be part of that, but we need to pick up something and say, hey, look, here's the X, Y, and Z's, right? The ABCs of how this is going to work going forward. But it is the wild, wild west. And none of us know exactly how to do it, but I'm here for it. So thank you for trying to address the NFT thing and all that. It's hard. So good question.
Our start is with the writer is something that that is simple, that you can just at least ask to be included in anything you do, and it gets the conversation started at the very least. And you say, great, you know, I use the standard NAVA writer in this that I'm doing, so make sure I'm gonna throw this in as well. Oh, by the way, will you sign this addendum or sign this writer in addition to that? I'm happy to sign your stuff. So, and it's a great way to get the conversation started.
And yes, Ashanti says, so basically every time you see something, say something. Absolutely. Absolutely. It all starts with the wonderful task of reading our contracts and making sure we're not just signing random stuff, because that's where the trouble starts.
Thank you guys so much. Please support NAVA. Please support the work that they're doing. Thank you guys so much for being so selfless, but also just being leaders in our industry. We are so appreciative. Please, everybody that has joined tonight, tell your voiceover friends. Tell your voiceover friends about this. Tell them about NAVA. I mean, spread the word, okay? So you've gotten the information, now spread the word, because that's gonna help Tim and Cissy and Zeke, because they can only do so much within a day. And so it's our job now to go just shout it from the rooftops, okay, guys? And thank you again so, so much, you all. Zeke, you're a new friend to me. Cissy, I've known about you for a while. And Tim, of course, we adore you. And so thank you guys so, so very much. And
thank you so much for hosting. And thank you everybody for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Be strong.
Go forth in awesomeness.
Have a great night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.